So this is the sad thing that we have seen over the past 3 years, is we see that the mainstream media chooses, and there's a reason why they're choosing. There's a reason why they can choose what they want to publicize, because they are paid by the government.
Sudbury man refused kidney transplant due to vaccination status dies. Garnet Harper, 35, leaves behind a wife and 5 children. He was refused a kidney transplant due to what? Vaccination status? Sheila Lewis, dying because she needs a organ transplant. Are you an organ donor? You might want to seriously consider putting it on hold until we can get a policy in place by our government.
Alexa Lavoie reporting for Ribbon News, and today we are addressing a pressing issue in Canada, the discrimination faced by Canadians seeking life-saving transplant surgeries. Individuals suffering from serious diseases who diligently pay their taxes like everyone else are experiencing denial of life-saving treatment solely due to their medical choice of not being vaccinated against COVID-19. Tragically, this discrimination has led to a fatal case, the one of Garnet Harper, a 35-year-old father of 5. Garnet was diagnosed with stage 5 kidney disease in February 2022, and his only chance of survival was a kidney transplantation. Heartbreakingly, he was denied the life-saving organ transplant because he had not been vaccinated against COVID-19. Similar cases are emerging all across Canada, like Sheila Annette Lewis in Alberta and Joanie Dupuis in Montreal. In response to this grave injustice, Madame Lewis has bravely taken her case to court. However, the Alberta Court of Appeal ruled that Alberta Health Services COVID-19 vaccination requirement for organ transplant patients do not infringe upon the Charter of Right and Freedom. Shockingly, the Supreme Court declined to hear the case. Adding to the concern, Pastor Henry Hildebrand, known for facing persecution during the pandemic for preaching and standing up against injustice, has raised his voice against this distressing discrimination that is pushing vulnerable individuals closer to death.
Sudbury man refused kidney transplant due to vaccination status dies. Garnet Harper, 35, leaves behind a wife and 5 children. He was refused a kidney transplant due to what? Vaccination status? What's next? Religious status? Would the next title read, Sudbury man refused kidney transplant due to him being a Christian? This reminds me a lot of a man in the 1930s who discriminated against easily identifiable groups. Remember? Is that where we want to go? We have another person, I believe she's in Alberta, Sheila Lewis, dying because she needs a organ transplant. Are you an organ donor? You might want to seriously consider putting it on hold until we can get a policy in place by our government that will guarantee zero discrimination. Sheila is scrambling, trying to get to the US so she can get an organ transplant. This friend of mine, Garnet Harper, was fighting for his life, and he stood up for our God-given freedom and left behind his wife and 5 children. What will it take? Do we really want to go the way of the 1930s? I don't think so. Let this be a wake-up call. God help us.
Today, Pastor Hildebrand is expressing his deep concern about the medical coercion faced by vulnerable people.
I think it is an extremely tragic thing when a wife is left behind with 5 children and we find out what the reason was, and we see that it was his personal choice, it was his bodily autonomy, God-given freedom, whatever you want to call it, or he made a choice, and based on that choice, the unelected health officials decide that this person does not qualify to receive an organ transplant. That to me is extremely, extremely alarming, because if that goes through, or if we leave that like it is, that means that tomorrow it could be that somebody has a certain religion, and because of that, they will not give him or her an organ transplant. And I feel like at this point, and many of my friends, many people feel the same way across this country, that at this point, why would you want to donate your organ to an organization, to a government that discriminates and totally discriminates based on personal choice, whether that's religion or bodily autonomy, whatever it might be? That to me is very alarming, and it sets a bad precedent going forward.
You ask also in your video to the people to, if they want, they should remove their name from the donor of organ. Doing this action, what do you want to reach as a result?
So if people agree that what was done here or is being done, and we still have, I believe there's another person in Quebec, there's another one in Alberta, they are basically dying unless they can receive an organ transplant. So what I was trying to tell the people is, look, unless we stand together, and you and I both know the strength in standing together, unless we stand together and demand that there be no discrimination, then we are better off to hold off for a moment until we can demand that. Because if we don't, like I said, it gets out of hand. That was my point. First, it was the churches. First, they came against the pastors. Then they came against the doctors, the nurses. And now you see how that precedent that was set is playing out. And that's why people need to wake up. That's why I said in that video, this should be a wake-up call to us to recognize this has a snowballing effect. This reminds me so much of what happened, like I said in the video, in the 1930s, when a person discriminates against people, when a leader discriminates against people because of their abilities or disabilities, who knows what. And that's why the people need to stand up and say, look, how can I donate? How can I leave when I'm dying? How can I leave behind a writing that says I will donate my organs to an organization that will discriminate who may receive that organ?
What do you think is their goal to obligate, to make the people who want a transplant of organ to receive that shot?
So I don't think it is about the shot. I don't think it is about our health, because Garnet Harper posed no danger to anyone, not at all, none whatsoever. But what it is, it's called retribution. It's a punishment. It's a payback. It is to send a message to the general public. Look, unless you do what we mandate, we will punish you. We will get back at you. And that's what I think hurts very, very much. When you look at, so now the wife and 5 children, they are being punished by a government that is supposed to serve their people, by a government that is supposed to help a family like that. Now she's being punished for the rest of her life because her husband made a choice. The bodily autonomy is a fundamental right. It's a God-given freedom. And every Canadian appreciates that we have bodily autonomy. It is my body. I can choose what I want to do with my body. So this is, like I said, this sets a bad precedent, and it's not really about the shot, but it's more a retribution.
And surprisingly, there is not much coverage from mainstream media talking about what happened, but mainstream media are pretty they are pretty fast to cover if they have a murder or if they have a crime somewhere. But for this, there was not much coverage. Can you explain the phenomenon?
Yes, exactly. And Alexa, this is the sad thing that we have seen over the past 3 years is we see that the mainstream media chooses, and there's a reason why they're choosing. There's a reason why they can choose what they want to publicize because they are paid by the government. Okay, so the government tells them what to publicize and what not to publicize, and the government doesn't want to publicize this, that there's a wife and 5 children left behind due to the government overreach. They don't want to publicize that. And that's why I'm extremely thankful that there is media like Rebel News and like True North and others that will tell us the other side and that will publicize what needs to be publicized, because the government is covering up these things because the government knows that if this is publicized, that it might not go over well because, like I said, you have 5 children left behind without a dad. He was only 35 years old, and the retribution was based on him making his choice. That looks very, very bad on the government, and that's why we need to publicize it through whatever platform we have. Let the people know. Do you realize that this is what's happening? Like I said, if we look back in history, and unless we know our history, we will repeat our history. Let's not forget what happened in the 1930s. It didn't start overnight. Slowly but surely, the individual freedoms were taken away, and then the leader could do what he was doing because he slowly but surely conquered the people and he controlled them. Really, this is all about control. They want to let this family know, look, unless you do what we tell you, we will punish you for your decision. And that does not sit well in Canada. That's just wrong. That's just plain wrong, and it is wrong before God.
Do you think that there is a little bit of pressure coming from either federal or provincial level on those institutions to impose this mandatory shot?
Oh, I absolutely believe that there's a lot of pressure coming from them. It is their agenda. And they have to do that because they want to get control, right? They try that with COVID, they try that with climate change, they try to do that with who knows whatever else they're using. It's all about controlling the people, see how they can do it, and they're definitely putting the pressure on and letting them know, look, unless you do what we tell you, you will face the consequences.
If you had like a last word for the people, how they can take action to maybe like push back against that?
So my word to the Canadians, and not just Canadians, but worldwide, we see there is a serious agenda of control going on. And the only way we can stand against that is if we stand together as a community. We stand together and we stand on it. These are our God-given freedoms. We have bodily autonomy, and if we stand together, even if we aren't the majority, but if we stand together against the wrong, against the darkness, against the evil, if we stand together, we are powerful, powerful. The only way they can conquer us if they can divide us. Let's not be divided. Let's stand together.
If you think like us that all this is going too far and discrimination over a medical choice should not be taking place in Canada, go over organnotcoercion.ca. On this webpage, you can sign the petition, make your voice heard, and make a difference on patients who are being denied access to life-saving treatment. Go over organnotcoercion.ca.